18 months ago. The very first time I met with the players, 8 of them decided they were going to put their name in the portal and leave. I said, don't you like it yet? No, I love it. I love Miami. It's great. But the opportunity to make money someplace else created a situation that you have to begin to ask yourself as a coach, what is this all about? And the answer is it's become professional. But it's been my philosophy, and the way I've approached this game is about teaching, developing relationships with young kids and trying to help them develop uh, and prepare them for life when they're no longer playing basketball. And my wife and I have tried to create a family atmosphere of the university. Wherever we go, we represent the University of Miami, and it's all about the U. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. But I thank everybody for coming, my players, my coaches, and all of you, the people who have made this job so special. Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Coach. And we'll open it up for questions for both Dan and Jim.
Hey, Jim. It's kind of like a funeral in here. I was saying there should be flowers and
One of the questions you had to ask yourself, because the portal is so big, and I'm all for transferring, but what the portal created is transferring every year. I loved having Angel Rodriguez and Sheldon McClellan and Kamari Murphy transfer in and spending a year here learning to live and love Miami. and help us because they knew the system and they bought into the philosophy that we shared with them, the coaches. Now they were all in. Now it's just so different. And guys come in and it's a quick turnaround. And you can't really lay the foundation for what I'm about in that short a period of time. So I felt like, well, if I can't do this as well as I'd like, or I feel the university deserves because of the tremendous support that we get, then maybe there's someone out there that can. And if I can help them in any way, if I can help the university in any way, I want to do that because I love the place.
Jim, this is a pattern that's developing in coaching. Your contemporaries deciding not to coach anymore. You see this continuing to pick up steam? Is it that frustrating?
Of coaching at three different Division I institutions: Bowling Green, George Mason, and Miami. And for any of you that know me, that acronym is ACC, because that was my dream, to one day be the head coach of an ACC school. And then when the Miami job opened up and Jose was able to, it felt like I died and went to heaven. And my wife and I, our children, were ridiculous with an agent saying to me, well, you can get involved if you're willing to go to $1.1 million. Like, what? $1 million? And that be the norm. That was the norm. Like, you're talking to people that expect $1 million for playing college basketball. So for those guys, and God bless them, that can handle that, they can work through it, that the schools that can figure out a way to either put so much money to it or figure out a way that you can live with less. But I talk to a lot of my friends, and they're having all the same problems I'm having. How long they will last, it's anybody's guess.
As the situation was developing, you reach out to some of your contemporaries about this decision?
Well, I talk to my wife and my sons all the time, and I spoke to a sports psychologist. His name is Dr. Bob Rotella. And we talk 2 or 3 times a week. But the one thing I didn't do was I didn't call him after our, we've been best friends for over 40 years. He counsels me and has counseled me throughout my career. And I made up my mind. I was looking at the season and kept asking myself, can you figure out a way? And I kept the consistency and the balance that you're looking for as a coach. It's not your players' fault. I mean, it's not their fault. I mean, but my most important thing now is to support Bill Courtney and the coaches and the team, to be there for them in any capacity. I don't know how many of you know, Bill and I have been best friends for 28 years. He was with me at Bowling Green. He was with me at George Mason. And then I was absolutely thrilled when he decided he'd come and help me with our program. Brought in Jordan Miller and Charlie Moore, Nigel Pack, and Norshad O'Meara. He was the point person for all I wouldn't have been able to stay coaching if I had not met him, because he's been, and he'll do a great job. He's got a very difficult job ahead of him because the ACC is a very practice. I like practice. I like being around the guys. I like when like Isaiah was improving and we could see he was headed to the NBA at Davon Reed. Those guys were recruited and they had good opportunities, but no one picked them to be NBA players. And now I just did an interview with the Charlotte Observer. Isaiah's with the Charlotte Hornets now, and they love him. So I'm very proud of those guys. I'm proud of the assistant coaches who've been able to, who just stay in touch with me all the time. No, I just told them, well, I basically asked them what the 4 levels of commitment are. And Divine Ugochukwu answered. And I said, well, I've tried to make that commitment throughout my career, and it's gotten to the point now that I can't do it like I'd like to do it.
What did it say when you told her?
She said, no, you're not. We had talked about it when the kids started asking for NIL. 8 guys off a Final Four team. And four of the key players on that Final Four run could still be here now playing. The world has changed. College athletics has changed. And it's much more complicated and difficult to navigate it.
Something you considered after last season?
No, after last season, I was so mad that I thought this will back, and the staff worked incredibly hard. My passion for the game. We got to figure out what happened and how we correct it. But then, as I could see things, I didn't correct it. Yeah.
One thing you always mention freezing. Seeing how the game evolves now.
Yeah. Used to.
Form should
Well, at least you listen to me. These guys in the back, they don't listen to me. They go in and start jacking up threes immediately. But again, I love camp because it's teaching. It's working with young kids, and we've had great relationships that were developed from camp. Right?
Yes.
Wait a minute, did you cancel your vacation or just?
I'm wondering, kind of piggybacking a little bit on what Gary said, but what do you think is going to happen? College basketball in the state that it's in, and what do you think that maybe players, like even in the NBA, players sign contracts in professional sports. They at least have to stay a number of years, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. What do you think could be done maybe? Love the game so much. You see that it's deteriorating in a way because of all this. What's a way the players could still get the money they deserve, but also coaches able to develop players over a period of time? Is there a way to do it?
Well, I don't know if you remember on our run to the Final Four, people all making a big deal about the one of the NIL deals that one of our players got. And I said, yeah, but that's going to be the new normal now, and it's just going to get either better or worse depending on how you look at it. My thought originally, and this goes back 20 years, is that these kids are students. They're not allowed to have what you would call work study, like the normal student can come in and get a job. And my answer was we should make it like work study. They're going to put in 20 hours a week and in their sport. Let's pay them a reasonable salary, make it professional, and make it transparent. Right now, there's no transparency. One of the difficult things, I feel like I'm an honest guy. So if I'm talking to someone, I hope they're telling me the truth. And in many situations, the person would tell you something, and you'd find out later, no, that's not really accurate. And you don't know. You don't know who's telling the truth. There's no transparency. If someone tells you, "Oh, I've been offered $1 million. What would you offer me?" Like, you've been offered $1 million, man. You better take that, right? Because that's ridiculous. $1 million to play college basketball, right? And then you find out he was offered 100,000. You know, when there's no transparency, there's no professionalism in the sport. It's a pro sport now. You have to have a pro mentality, and you have to have a pro system in place to deal with all of it. If we're going to have agents, if we're going to be paying substantial amounts of money, then there needs to be some accountability for that. That's one of the things that I felt like, in these last 2 seasons, I'm not earning my salary. I'm supposed to be able to do a really good job because I'm being rewarded for all the previous success that I've had in hopes that that success will continue. And when I'm not able to do that, I say to myself, you need to step down. You need to step aside and let someone who is better equipped to handle this new world than I am.
And you guys got to go find that person. Environment, obviously, with coaches not enjoying.
Earlier said this was like a funeral and we needed wreaths, and I sat here and I've been thinking about that for a while. I think we all should be incredibly joyous I mean, how many people for Jim to have the self-reflection that he's articulated here over the last half an hour is unique and something that doesn't happen all the time. Whatever your profession, you always want to be able to move on your own terms. And to be able to do that, I think is something that needs to be celebrated. And we certainly, want to, as we look to move forward, Gary, it's a difficult atmosphere out there. The lack of what Jim was just talking about, no collective bargaining, no limited antitrust exemption, all the things that you talk about and hear about in intercollegiate athletics has led to the symptoms that Jim just talked about. So that has to be the longer term view of what we need to have happen. Will that occur before we need to move forward and conduct a national search? I highly doubt it. So we're going to be looking at the attributes that the University of Miami can provide to a potential coach. Looking at obviously playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference, which is an incredible basketball league, and making sure we put our best foot forward to get someone that can come in, be a part of the community, part of the university, but at the same time, feel like they have the ability to navigate this world and the changing world that we're in. Well, of course, my admiration for Jim and our basketball program. I certainly asked him to reconsider, talk through a number of items. But as I was going through my little spiel, I could tell that he made up. But I felt like I had to do it, and it was important for me to do that. But certainly respecting the decision that he made, and allowing us the great history that he's brought here to the University of Miami lays a great foundation for us to move forward.
You were on a committee to regulate NIL. What was your first suggestion?
Oh gosh, this is only a short press conference, so we won't get into all of that. There's a number of different ways to go, but I think first and foremost we have to be able to look at some form of, as Jim works, and I think right now we're in that world, and we want to make sure that well, I shouldn't say that we have a foot in that world, but we're not completely there. Okay, whether it's basketball or football and transfer portal windows and timing and all the rest of that, just are completely different and very difficult for coaches to create that team atmosphere that I know Jim loved to do, and many coaches around the country are really wanting to have happen. So we need to change some of those rules. There's a lot of people around the country looking to try to make that happen, both in intercollegiate athletic Congress and Washington, D.C. to help try to make that happen, because it certainly may need some type of governmental intervention for it to happen.
Before I answer that question, I would like to read a poem. It's a meaningful poem to me, and I'd like to share it with you because it'll give you a little indication about how I feel. It's from a philosopher named L.P. Jacks, who's a philosopher in the 1930s. The master in the art of living draws no distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence through whatever he is doing and leaves it up to others to decide whether he is working or playing. To himself, he's always doing both. And that's basically been my life. I love coaching. I've loved doing what I do. I want to stay very heavily involved with the university in whatever capacity they see fit. Not moving from Coral Gables, that's for darn sure, because this place is awesome. And the university has been so kind and generous to me and my wife. We owe it to them to do whatever we can to help get the basketball program back on its right footing.
Would you consider, you've always sort of considered yourself a professor of life?
Yeah, you've had me in as a guest speaker. How did I do when I was there?
Good. That's why I'm wondering, you think?
I love teaching. You know,
to be a part-time professor?
I think I've always been a professor. Just basketball's been my subject, my topic. I mean, these guys will tell, I talk to them about history, geography. I've quizzed them on things that I don't think many coaches would even consider a topic that you should bring up to your basketball team. We've tried to make them more worldly. We took them to a Broadway show last year, to Hamilton, one of the great shows of all time. They hated it. I mean,
Other questions? Great. Thank you, Dan and Jim, and thank you, everybody, for coming.
thanks, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Hi, Jan.
Did a great job.
And then
Thank you, guys. Jose,
Ooh.
thank you. I didn't get a chance to say hello.
Hey, you know,
Good.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Posted.
Thank you, man.
Great working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
We'll see you around.
Awesome having it. We'll see it. I told you that before. Okay.
I appreciate that.
Come inside.
I'm going up.
Hey, you've
Right
been
now.
great.